Today's Amud is Daf Tes Vav Amid Beis. We're going to start on the bottom of Tes Vav Amid Aleph. So we're discussing the Shita of Rabbi Shimon Ish HaMitzpah, who said that when you the carbon tamid is an oila. So again, the halacha is that carbon oila gets when we're talking about the hazah onto the corners of the mizbeach. So some carbonates get on all four corners. Some just get one nesina, and the oila gets shtayim shein arba. That means you'd put it on two corners of the mizbeach, and that would end up two sides of the mizbeach, and that would end up getting all four sides. So the Gemara said that it was put on the Tzvainis Mizrachis. So got some picture books here. Can you see it? Not so clearly. That's got a filter on. All right, but if you're going up the Mizbeach, let's say this is the Mizbeach. Let's do it like this. Okay, so if this is the ramp of the Mizbeach was here, so this side is Durham, this side is Tzafan. So this corner would be Tzafain, because here is Mizrach and that way is Ma'ariv. So this corner here is Tzvainis Mizrachis. So he'd walk around here, put it on these two corners. So this is Mizrachis and Tzvainis. And he'd walk around and then put it over here on Ma'aravas Dremis. So those are the Shtayim Shehin Arba. Now, Reb Shimon ben Menasya held that a carbon tamid would be like a chatas, and he dashes the pasuk for that. And he actually says that here you do shtayim shein arba, but here you actually put on ma'ariv and on darm, not shtayim shein arba, but you more similar to a chatas. The chatas was put on all four corners, so he wanted this to be similar to a chatas because he dashes the pasuk like that, and he says you got to put it on not shtayim shein arba, but actually two matanas. So the Gemara was taking issue with Rabbi Shimon because he dashes the pasuk. Let's just start from there. We'll start from Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph. It's like 5 lines up from where it gets wide. Am Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Chad Bei Rabbi Yanai Amarkra. This is explaining the reasoning for Rabbi Shimon ben Ish HaMitzpah. He says, Amarkra, pasuk says, Usir izim echad lachatas Hashem, al oilasatam mediyosef v'niskay. So he dashes over there that it's the carbon, the tamid is a carbon oila, but it's got similarities to a chatas. So oilhiv amrachmana avid b'maisa chatas. It's an oila, but you have to act like it with a chatas. Okay, so how do you do that? Neisin achas shishtaim. On one corner you do achas, which is like two, kamaisa oila, which is shtaim, and then you do shtaim shem shtaim k'maisa chatas. You put on each on the maravas maravas dremis. You're going to put on each side like you would do with the chatas. Practically maravalitin shtaim shein arba k'maisa ela the arba shein arba k'maisa chatas. Why don't you do both? First do shtaim shein arba, and then do like you would do for a chatas. Says, you don't find that we do a kapara with dam, meaning we do a full set of hazah and then go and do it again. Okay, so you don't find it. Big deal. Do you find that you do with a dam half chatas, half ayla? No. Why are you doing this differently? Because you have a hekesh. The Torah is putting the two together. So the Torah is putting them together here too. So what's the difference if you do it twice or you just do it once differently? And it says the Gemara, Hasam Pisuk Matanis Ba'almahi. I'm just dividing the matanis. I'm not doing the whole thing twice. I'm just dividing the way I would do it. So normally you would do it shtayim shein arba. So now I'm doing one shtayim, and then the next two. I'm really doing this sort of the same thing. I'm just doing it a little bit differently. So it's pisuk dam. I'm just dividing the pisuk matanis. I'm just dividing the matan. I'm not doing another set of matanis. Okay. Frankly, more v'neisav achas shtayim lemata k'maisa oila and shtayim shein shtayim lemala k'maisa chatas. Now the chatas was done on the top corners of the mizbech. You know the mizbech had those corners sticking out, and the chatas you put dam on each of the corners. So why don't, and the oila on the other hand is on the bottom when you're walking around on the floor, and you'd put it on the bottom part, so you get shtayim shin arba. So frekt the Gemara the Levenesa v'achas shi shtayim lamata k'maisa oila and shtayim shin shtayim lamala k'maisa chatas. Why don't we let's do it for real? Like a oila and a chatas. So the oila part do on the bottom of the mizbeach, and the chatas part do on top of the mizbeach. So it says, we don't find such a thing that you have half of it done below and half of it done above. So no, but we don't find that. This is talking about when the Kohen Gadol went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to sprinkle the dam of the par. It says, he's a menu achas lamala. He would do one above the sheva lamata. So the Gemara thought that meant he had to do, he would sprinkle it towards the kaperis. So he thought one had to be above the kaperis and 7 had to be below the kaperis. So you see that it's some above and some below. I says, no, that's not what it means. It means kamatzlev. What does it mean, kamatzlev? So ma'achvi Rav Yehuda ke minagdisa, like someone who's getting malchus. When you gave malchus to when the Shliach Bezin gave malchus, so he didn't do it in the same spot each time. He just did. He didn't do it in the same spot each time. He did it, a little bit lower than the one before it. So that's what it didn't have to be divided between above and below. Okay. So the more now that's what we got up to yesterday. Now the more asks another kasha. We don't split up matanas the damim. We don't ever split it up above and below. But tonight we learned in a Mishnah. This is talking about when the Kohen Gadol did the hazah on the mizbeach hazahav. So the Gemara says, "Vatanan hizamivenu al tia reishal mizbeach shavapam." The Gemara, the Mishnah says that he would sprinkle al tiharei shal mizbeach. What's tiharei shal mizbeach? My love, a palga de mizbeach. What is the word tiharei? Taharei shal mizbeach. What is the word taharei? So the Gemara thought it meant like the halfway mark, because people say the amrei inshi tihara. The clearness of the day, and that's referring to Palga the Yoma, the halfway chatzais is called Tiara the Yoma. So we thought that Tare Shal Mizbeach meant the halfway mark on the wall of the Mizbeach Hazav. Mizbeach Hazav, they put the Keteris on top, so we thought he did Hazah on the wall of the Mizbeach. Says Rashi, last line in Rashi, the last word on the second to last line, Neged Emtza Goiva Kirei. We thought you were doing it on the wall of the mizbeach. Tiara tzarei and palga diyama. The afternoon is half of the day. The kiven the sheva hazois he's a hamaza. Since the sprinkler sprinkled 7 times, there had to be some above and some below the halfway mark on the wall of the mizbeach. So you see that some were lamala, some lamata. So that's the kasha. Why can't we do the chatas, the tamid, when we're doing 2 like an oila, and we do 1 sprinkle like an oila and the other 2 like a chatas? Let's do it on the top of the mizbeach like a chatas. So, and we do find a source for that, because you see when the Kohen Gadol was sprinkling on the mizbeach hazav, some of it was above, some of it was below. So Mar says, Amar Rabbi Bar Shila lo agufa the mizbeach. Taharei shel mizbeach ran tezvav amid beis. It does not mean the side wall of the mizbeach and the halfway point. It means on the cleared out part atop of the mizbeach. Aguva the mizbeach. Rashi says al gagoi, on the top of it. Aye. So what does it mean? Taharei shel mizbeach, says Rashi. My lashon taharei al shem shemitaher, because you purified umefana, you cleared away the katerish and israf al babaikar. So you, the pasuk says, the pasuk says, ke'etzem hashemayim, like the I don't know, the essential, the etzem hashemayim. How do you translate that? Etzem hashemayim latoyhar means, I'm just looking on Safaria, like the very like the very sky for purity, the very sky, the etzem, the atzim is the essential part of the sky for purity, la toihar. So that's the etzem, you look at the whatever. So the point is, la toihar means not on the middle, but it means the purest part, a very pure, cleared away part. So that's what the hazaz of the mizbeach were done on the top of the mizbeach, on a cleared off part. So, and that's what everything was done. So you have no right from here that there was some above, some below. Okay. The mark continues with this. Why is it that when you're doing the oila, when you're bringing the carbon tamid, you're doing the first you're doing like an oila, and then you're doing like a chatas. Let's do the chatas part first, and then do the oila part. Says the Gemara, Kivan the oilihi, he kadma beresha. Well, because it's an oila, it goes first. Oila is more kaddish maybe than a chatas, and an oila goes before a chatas. So the zrika that's done like, even though it says the whole thing's an oila, but the zrika that's done like an oila comes before the zrika that's done like a chatas. In fact, the Gemara umayshna the yahav mizrachis tzvainis umaravis draimis. Why do we do the east-north corner? Again, if this is my mizbeach, if this is the mizbeach, okay, and here's the ramp. So this side, this is the darum of the Beit HaMoked. This is the tzafan, this is ma'ariv, and this is mizrach. So the zrikas were done here and here. So in fact, the Gemara, why are we doing on those two corners? Ma'ishnam, do you have mizrachis tzvainis ma'aravis draimis, nesev draimis mizrachis, v'hadar tzvainis ma'aravis. Let's do this corner. That's the tzvainis mizrachis. No, the mizrachis draimis. This is southeast. And let's do these corners. Let's do those two. Why are we doing these two? That's the kasha. And it says the Gemara, Amri, we say, Oila tu'una yisaid. A carbon oila requires that there be a yisaid. Yisaid was the foundation of the mizbeach, and there was the mizbeach was like in steps. There was a yisaid going around the bottom, like mamish bottom, and then it went indented a little bit, and the kohen could walk around a little bit, and then you had the top. So the oila, now there was part of the mizbeach that didn't have the yisaid, and that was the part we learned about. That was in, I think, the chelik of Yehuda. The part of the mizbeach that was in the chelik of Yehuda did not have a yisaid. So, but the oila needs yisaid. So Amri oila tu yisaid. The karen jeremis mizrachis lei havele yisaid. On this part, there was no yisaid. Mizrachis and Jeremis had no yisaid. So there'd be no yisaid. If you did a zrika on this right here, there would be no yisaid. Take a look at Rashi. Oila tu'uni yisaid. Shehi dama nitem b'makim sheyehi yisaid lamata. The dam needs to be placed on the mizbech, in a place of the mizbech where there is a yisaid below it. El yisaid mizbech ha'ila lezavcha shel oila. Lezavcha shel oila yehi yisaid. Lamata imenu. El yisaid ha'mizbech. The Gemara dashins ha'ila lezivcha shel oila, the carbon oila, requires that there be a yisaid underneath it. It says Rashi, Karen Mizrachis Remis Lehoyla Yisaid, it didn't have a Yisaid. Kida Amrin Masechus Midas. Like the Mishnah in Midas says, HaYisaid Hayimahalach Al Panei Kol Hatzafin. The Yisaid went along the whole Safin, the whole northern part of the Mizbech, Bal Panei Kol HaMeirav, and the whole western part of the Mizbech. Bal Panei Kol HaMeirav. Uchal b'Mizrach, Ama, Achas, Keshatzav and Kol Mizrach, Ubedarim Ama Achas. So on Mizrach there was one Ama, that it was on the northeastern corner there was an Ama that the Yisaid went out, Kol Mizrach Ubidarm, and on the southern part of the Mizbech, also there was one Amma where on the Ma'ariv, on the west, on the southwestern corner, Kol Udarm. Almalei Yisrael Mizrach Hashemes, but there was no Yisaid on the southeastern part. I mean, Mizrachim, if Yishlei Haya Haysa Amma Hayisaid shall call HaMizrach, shall call Darm, Bechalke shall Binyamin. Because it didn't have a Yisaid because I think that was not in the Chelek of Binyamin. That part was in Yehuda. Okay, back to the Gemara. So that's why we couldn't do the opposite corners that we are doing. It says the Gemara, Ma'ishna B'Yohav Bereisha Mizrachas Tzvenis, V'Hadam Ma'arav Ezraimis. Why is it that we first do Mizrachas Tzvenis and then Ma'arav Ezraimis, Nesa Bereisha Ma'arav Ezraimis, V'Hadam Mizrachas Tzvenis? Okay, fair question. Why do we do that order? Again, if this is the ramp of the Mizbeach, so we don't do this corner, we skip it, and we do this corner, we walk around and do this corner. Why don't we start with this corner? Oh, says the Gemara, Kivan Amar Kol Pina Sha'ata Paina. Whenever you turn, Lo Yu El Derech Yamin, it's got to be to the right, LeMizrach. Now, that LeMizrach doesn't fit in our Gemara, but that was placed because of where the memra comes from. But the point is that you always turn to the right. So therefore, Bereisha Behu Paga. And therefore, the first one you're going to hit is this corner. Because if you're going to the Mizbech, you come here, you walk around, you turn to the right. You get to this corner. You can't do it here because there's no Yisaid. So the next one's going to be here. And then you go right again, and you end up over there. So that's why the Mizrach Tzvenis is the first one you do. Okay. How do you know when the pasuk says that al oila satamid yasa v'niska? Again, we're talking about the Rosh Chodesh chatas, and the pasuk says v'sir izim echad lachatas l'Hashem al oila satamid yasa v'niska. So how do you know we're supposed to do the oila like a chatas? Maybe the opposite. Maybe do your chatas like an oila. In fact, the one reminded about oila who dekam rachmana avid by ma'isa chatas v'dama bechatas who dekam rachmana avid by ma'isa oila. Maybe it's telling you should do your chatas like an oila. Somewhere says loy sakadaitach shvach. Dichsev al oila satamid yasa v'niska. My kam rachmana. What's the pasuk saying? Mi di de chatas. Something about a chatas. Shod ya oila. Throw it onto the oila. Al oila satamid. There's something of the chatas that I want you to put onto the oila. So that's what we do. Okay. Period. That ends this Geshmaka Gemara about the carbon Tamid and how Reb Shimon Ish HaMitzpah held that you had to do something like a chatas to your oila. Okay. Now the Gemara brings another Mishnah and asks a stira between two Mishnayos and gives a teretz. It really, Rashi says, has nothing to do with Yoma per se. But once we do that style of asking stiras and Mishnayos and giving a solution, so we're going to do it again here. If you want to see the Rashi, you don't want to take my word for it. Let's look at the Rashi. Rashi in the wider lines, not the very wide, 2, 4, 6 lines down. Tanan Hasam. The Mesachlis Tamid. This is actually in Mesachlis Tamid. It really has no shaykhs to put it here in Yoma. Elam mishum demayri el b'shnuyei ki haygavna man tana seder Yoma Reb Shimon Ish HaMitzpah le'shamin le'da amar hachi. Elam mishum de'shamin le'da polig seder tamid mukmi v'listami de poligi atamid alibi. So the Gemara was trying to answer a stira, and therefore we wanted to put Reb Shimon Ish HaMitzpah to be the Tana of Tamid, and it didn't work out. So the Gemara says we have another similar scenario where we were trying to do something similar to that. So Rashi says, "El mishum deshamin le the polig asay the tamid mukmil stami the peligi atamid alibe ve'ain shita kazayis mitzuya begemara kava nami lahach gabei de metukma nami bahach shitasa." So the Gemara is going to try to do a similar thing of saying that maybe the Tana of Tamid is a certain Tana, and then we'll see how that goes. Okay, so now I'm just my introduction that if you're not feeling like a connection to learning of the Oila, Karbanis, and Beis HaMikdash, and where the Mizbeach is and which corners, So I wanted to give you a little chizuk. Like this is how we're Isaac in the Beit HaMikdash. So we don't have Beit HaMikdash. We're looking to get one. So this allows us to sensitize ourselves a little bit to living Beit HaMikdash with the discussing the where everything was in the Beit HaMikdash and how the karbanos were done. It gives us a little bit of a feel, a little bit of a feeling for Beit HaMikdash. That's how I feel about it. So here we go. Tanan Hasan. We learned in a Mishnah there in Tamid. Amar lehem hamamuna. The Mamuna, Rashi says that was the Skan Kohen Gadol. Mamuna was the appointed one. He was the Skan Kohen Gadol. So he would say to them, "Tzu veheviu tle milishkas beis hatleim." Go bring. This is when it was time to bring the carbon tamid in the morning. So he would tell, I guess, the kahanim, go bring a sheep from the lishkas, from the office of the tleim. What was the office of the tleim? Rashi says, "Shahu atalayim sham mivukarin." They were already checked. You needed talayim that were ready to go. So they always had available 6 talayim, 6 sheep that were ready to be brought as a carbon tamid. So it was the lishkas talayim always had availability. Amar lehem hamuna tzu ve'aviu talayim lishkas beis talayim. The Lishkas Hatlayim was in the northeastern corner of where? In the of the Beit HaMoked. So there was a room in the Beit HaMikdash. I put this up. I'm actually going to see if I could share my screen with you. Let me just put this up for a second because I got it. I shared it on WhatsApp. Well, let me just see if I could bring it up. Give me a minute. Maybe I have it somewhere else. My computer's going a little bit slowly here, but I do have it. Okay, great. Now, let me share my screen. Share screen. Okay, perfect. Okay, amazing. So you now see, here is a Marlowe's Midrash. So let's just get this is the western side. If you see my pointer here, this is west, east, north, and south. So here's the Mizbeach we were discussing before. These are the corners where they did this Shtaim Shina Arba. And now this room over here is called the Beit HaMoked. Okay, the Beit HaMoked, Moked is like a furnace or a fire, and that's because there was actually a fire burning in here. This is if the Kahana needed to warm up because the floor was all marble and they had to be barefoot. So if they got cold, they could come in here in this office to warm up. Okay, so you'll notice there are 4 corners here, and there are 4 offices in these corners. And the Gemara is telling us that the lishkas of the Hatalayim was in the Tzefainis Maravis. So that's going to be Tzefainis Maravis is going to be this corner over here. That's where they kept the sheep. That's what the Gemara. That's what this Mishnah says. Okay, so now Ba'arba Lishkas Hayisham. There are 4 offices back in the Gemara. Ba'arba Lishkas Hayisham. There are 4 offices there. Achas Lishkas Hatlayim. One was Lishkas Hatlayim. Ba'achas Lishkas Hachisamis. One was an office of stamps. The way you didn't bring money into Harabayas, so if you needed to buy Nesachim or Menachas, so you bought that outside of Harabayas, and you would be given a stamp, a chesem, like a ticket, and you'd bring your ticket to this office here, and they would give you whatever it says you paid for. Okay. And then there was Va'achas Lishkas Beis HaMoked. There was another room in the big Beit HaMoked. There was another room that also had a fire going, and that was a place where the Kahanim would go down. The next mission will tell us to the Beis HaTfilah. So they had a fire in there. They can warm up after they were table. Now, ba'achas lishka she'osin b'lechem apanim. Another office in here had, or another corner was where they made the lechem apanim. Geshmak. Okay, so that's what this Mishnah says. We have a stira. We have a stira from a Mishnah in Midas. The Mishnah in Midas says Arba lishkas hayil Beis HaMoked. There were 4 offices in the Beis HaMoked. Kikeitaniyos hapesuches latraklan. They were like offices open to a hall. Shtayim b'kodesh, 2 were in kodesh. Shtayim b'chol, and 2 were in chol. Now you notice in this diagram here that this Beis HaMoked went outside the Beis HaMikdash. They were in chol, and 2 of them were in kodesh. Okay. Now, v'rashi paspasid. Now, you had to have a divide going across to make sure people knew where it was kodesh and what was chayil. So they had some rashi paspasin, I guess, were pieces of wood that would demarcate where kodesh and chayil, where the divide was. Now, how were these rooms used? Okay, so now listen to what it says. Marav is draimis. Marav is draimis. That's here. Marav is draimis is here. What does the Mishnah say? He haisa lishkas talai karban. Oh, that's where they had the talayim kept, in this corner. So just pointing out the stira. The Mishnah we said before said it was in the mizrachis, in the mizrachis draimis. Okay, and here we're saying that it's in Mizracha. The Mishnah before said it was in Tzvainis Maravis. Sorry, the north western, and this Mishnah says that is in the southwestern corner. Okay, that's gonna be the stira. Let's just finish up the Mishnah. Then we have Draimis Mizrachis. Draimis Mizrachis. That's back here. So he lishka shahayu oisim balachem apanim. That's where they made the lechem apanim. So those 2 were in kodesh, and then mizrachis tzvainis over here. Gunzu beis chashmonai avim mizbeach. The beis chashmonai regoinis. They hid. They put away the pieces of the mizbeach sheshaktu malchi evdei kachavim that got ruined by the Yavanim. And then Tzvenis Marav is the corner that we said before was the Lishkas Atlaim. This Mishnah says Tzvenis Marav is Ba Yardin Beis HaTfilah. That was the room where they went down to the Beis HaTfilah, the Kahanim that were Tam, which makes sense because it was in Chayil. So if the Kahanim became Tameh, he'd go down to the Beis HaTfilah there. That's where the little fire was. So we have a stira between the 2 Mishnayos. Where was the Lishkas Atlaim? Was it in Kodesh or Chayil? That's really the Machlekes. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Huna, man Tana Midas. Who is the Tana of Midas? Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And we shall continue with that, Emetz Hashem, tomorrow. Have a wonderful night.